Welcome to Mom of Eight Conversations on a Win-Win Women platform, where we women gather to care, connect, and collaborate. Truly a win-win for us all. I'm Reagan Barnes, your hostess, and I am a mom of eight and founder of nonprofit organization Mom of Eight that empowers you to elevate your mothering experience. Joining us today is Alicia Trautwein of Unmasking Autism. And you, Mom, you are joining us, and we are so glad to have you both, Alicia, and you too. We welcome you into the Mom of It community, or Mom
Yes,
Unity,
absolutely.
as we like to say. We are moms united in our passion to create a better world. Join us and become a Mom Unity member. It's free on our website, momavate.org. And together we'll constructively evolve motherhood into the 21st century, meeting the needs of our children while elevating our mothering experiences. Here at Momavate, we answer the question, what do moms do? With this uplifting statement, moms raise up society. That's right, not just our own kids, but all of society, including ourselves. This acronym is jam-packed with the far-reaching impact of intentional mothers who strive to improve and progress in these areas of motherhood. We're not just chauffeurs and short order cooks. As we take on the repetitive, loving work that shapes our children, it shapes us too. And it makes an impact that goes beyond our homes. Because as moms, we are uniquely positioned to influence society one on one. Today, with our special guest, Alicia, we're going to focus on the unique circumstances category of this acronym. Since there's no such thing as a motherhood mold, each one of us has a unique journey for various reasons. Alicia, we are excited to welcome you on the show. Please take a minute, introduce yourself, share with us what it is that makes your motherhood unique.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, my name is Alicia Trautwein. I am the creator behind the website themomkind.com, which is an autism parenting website geared to helping parents of neurodiverse families that be ADHD, anxiety, all different things that our children can, these challenges to go through the world with, right? And like you said, each one of our journeys is different, and ours became very different very quickly. So the general sum of it is that our entire family is neurodiverse. Neurodiverse meaning that we do not have our brains work differently. We don't have, we have a diagnosis like autism or ADHD, anxiety. And out of our 4 children, 3 of them are all autistic. And so our journey is very different in the fact that we are balancing not only one special need, but multiple. And each of our children are very different, even from each other, even though they are siblings and they share a diagnosis, they're still individuals and they have their own journeys to go through that we have to figure out as parents how to navigate. And so that's what the Mom Kind became about, is just really sharing our story and helping other moms share their stories as well, to give that inspiration that, every family's unique and we can all make our way through it.
Oh, I love that. So the name of the website is The Mom Kind, TheMomKind. That's beautiful. I'm so excited to have you here, and your willingness to be so open and share the different things that you've experienced and figured out, and the commitment level that you have is so inspiring. And we want to help other moms feel that committed to what's ahead with their families, no matter what diagnoses they have or anything like that. So we'll just start with some of questions that our viewers may or may not have a child with autism. So can you help us know what are some behaviors or characteristics that might indicate autism in a person?
Sure. So autism is a developmental disorder. And for the biggest part of that you can think about is the fact that development is delayed, that there is, things that happen still naturally for even those who are autistic, but they may come later or come differently. And so it's a social communication disorder. So there are struggles with social interactions and communications. So, a lot of people think of the whole eye contact. And that is a factor. However, it's not what people think about often. It's not that there's completely this lack of it. There's an avoidance of it or an unusual amount. And sometimes it could be almost the opposite, where it's an unusual amount, like there's too much eye contact. So it's not a key, like that's not the only factor. A lot of people see that as a main factor, and reality is it's just a part of it. But a big thing is, those struggles with the social situations, not being able to understand those social norms and communication. There are lots of delays with, how we communicate. So, those interactions of like hearing your own name and being able to answer to your own name. Well, for a lot of autistic children, that doesn't, and it doesn't come till much later. If it all. That was one of the first things we noticed with our son. It never clicked for him, not till he was much, much older. And so you've got all these little different little factors that they're not necessarily, this is the scientific, exact criteria to diagnose, but they're still the shared experiences, like, sarcasm. It's either you don't get it, or sometimes you have the rare few that'll be more of they understand it too much. And so like with us, we always joked around as kids, even, and because growing up, my autistic as well. And so it was always just explained. My mom with my own kids, that it would always be like, we'd say some sarcasm, some phrase of sarcasm, but then immediately explain what the sarcasm meant. And that's not a normal thing to do, but right. Something we didn't pick up on until years later. She had just picked that up, right?
It's one of the accommodations
that she had actually created on her own, because she noticed that wasn't the thing. But sometimes also you hear about very specific interests. So, when you think about young boys, that's where you have a lot of the Thomas the Trains and, things like that. But little girls have different interests. And so it can be that, yes, they love Barbie, but maybe, that's the only toy that they play with, the only thing they ever talk about, and that's their special interest. And so it's still a similar interest that what everybody else likes, except the volume of it's much higher.
Okay. And so what steps can we take if we notice some of these tendencies, maybe in ourselves or in a family member? What would be the next step if we are interested in a diagnosis?
Yeah, well, the first thing is always this, to really write everything down that you're noticing. That is it kind of fitting the mold? Because whether it's to help yourself understand or to talk to a doctor, many of the things we forget as the day goes on. There's so much on our plate. It's best just to write it down as we see it. For adults also, we don't always notice there's things going on in our world too that, especially if we're considering an autism diagnosis for ourselves, right? That, we could come across as very blunt and not understand why everybody thinks we're being mean when we're just telling the truth. Well, these little things that add up, that you can start writing that down. And as you write that down, you can make a call to your general practitioner or your pediatrician, according to, age group there, and ask for a referral. Because according to where you live, there are, developmental pediatricians, psychiatrists, psychologists, even neurologists, all of which that can diagnose autism. Now, not everybody will. There are some variables there. So it's really good that, especially if you have a great relationship with your primary caregiver, provider, that's who you reach out to first and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I think. So where should I go next? And they're going to be able to help you, kind of point you in a better direction for whether that be your insurance or just, who's in the area, things like that.
Okay. That's very helpful to know. I really like the idea of writing the things down, because like you said, there's, so much going on each and every day, and you might in the moment of talking to the pediatrician might not be able to recall the various issues, but if you've written it down, then you'll notice patterns and have specific things to talk about.
Yes, and doctors do appreciate that more than you could understand, because I have had to go in and do this multiple times. And, I've had doctors just point blank tell me, he's like, yes, that helps, because then I could see what you've been writing down this whole time. And it reduces the questions they have to ask that are general, and they can now focus on the specific questions they need to ask. Because even if it's not autism, obviously something's going on that you're concerned about, that even if they say, okay, I don't think it's autism, but I think you need to go see this doctor for this.
Right.
It gives them that guideline, that place to start to really dive deep into.
Yeah, and hopefully it's somebody who's got enough experience to have that ability to discern. So that's great. Now, we are very interested in knowing how routines might be helpful to a family that has autism within the family. What is it about routines that are helpful in that situation?
Yeah, so routines are extremely helpful. And I say this in general for every family, no matter whether you have a child with autism or not. I really believe routines and structure are an amazing resource. And for, when you're talking specifically about autism, routines provide that structure, that transitions, and that unknown time period, that moving from one step to another, that causes a lot of anxiety and a lack of control of the world around you. And so with autism, you have all these sensory needs too. So some might be sensory seeking, or some are sensory avoiding, but no matter where you are on that part of the spectrum, is that, you are trying to control what you can control. So routines provide that control, but it also provides, that takes away that anxiety that comes in with not knowing what's coming next. And so, and so what we talk about is that's the transitions, the transitioning from one step to another. So it could be something as simple as, they're watching TV and you've got dinner on the table. Well, you might instinctively just wait till it's almost on the table and say, okay, dinner's ready, come to the table, and expect them to move. Well, the problem is, in their head, they haven't done those steps yet, because, okay, but in advance, I know what's going on. Now I know, okay, in 5 minutes, I have to turn my TV off. It gives my brain a chance to switch over from one step to another.
That's great. Yeah. So, and I agree with you. I think that's valuable, whether or not there's a diagnosis in the family. It just keeps everybody feeling like they know what the plan is and how they can mentally prepare for it before it has to happen.
Yeah. And routines aren't as structured as a lot of people think about routines, because a lot of times when we think about routines, we think about schedules. We kind of combine those in our brains, and they're completely different. So routine is more just the steps you take, not necessarily always the time period. Okay. And routines are also stuff that can be broken down throughout the day. Different, we all have our own routines for how we get ready for bed, and even how we brush our teeth, the order that we do stuff and put stuff away. And so it's just more about knowing what those routines are, or even setting up those routines to take away all that extra stressors, and then it leaves room to actually do stuff that you want to be enjoyable.
Good point. Yeah. So I agree. I think that is really critical to be conscientious about the routines, and be aware of what routines might need to be set up in that very direct manner, instead of just thinking, well, of course we'll go to sleep when it's sleep time, but wait a minute, let's back up. And what time are we going? And like you said, it's not necessarily about time, but when it is the point of time of day to get ready for bed, right? What are you going to do first? Are you going to get on your jammies and then brush your teeth and then use the bathroom, or, what order those
exactly.
things?
Yeah, in our household, we have a lot of different routines that we have set up.
That's what I was going to ask about next. If you're willing to share that, what are some of the routines that your family uses for the day-to-day management of things?
Yeah. So for our house, it's definitely been an interesting balancing act, because you're talking about different age groups, different children, different needs. And so it's a lot of things about, there are basic level ones and stuff that is individualized. So, for our son, when we were going through the process of developing routines with him, because when he was younger, he had a lot more issues with speech because with our two older ones, they were only 16 months apart. So while the youngest did not speak nearly as much, or, what would be considered, age appropriate language, her sister often spoke for, for her. And to the point that we could always notice that there was a problem because, you have the one that's 16 months older translating for the other one, or they had their own little language subtype. But with our son, he didn't have that extra, body to bounce stuff off of. And so we had to do a lot of, work with him on, speech therapy and really regaining his speech because he had a lot of regression. And in the process, we learned about doing visual schedules. Okay. And so visual schedules is a way to do that kind of combination. It's routine. It's not necessarily about time management, but it's more about what order we do stuff. And so we made a routine. Okay, we get out of bed, we get dressed, we put our dirty clothes in the hamper, then we go eat breakfast.
So when you say a visual schedule, did you have a picture of these different things? Is that
and we use a little magnet board. I took I have this printable on our website even that I give for, it's something that a lot of parents need, and you just kind of create it yourself. So we took little magnets on the back of laminated pieces of paper that had it had like a hamper, and it would say laundry under it for when he would eventually learn how to read it. But for the most part, he saw the hamper, and he would, whenever he would get done with the task, he would move it over to the done pile.
So even moving it is
and so he could physically see, okay, I did this. Okay. Yeah, and so that helped him get those steps in. And then if he missed a step or he forgot to go back and even do it, then it was like, okay, well, what did we miss? Or, wow, we didn't know we missed this because we didn't move the stuff over. And it gave him that visual, because every child learns differently, whether you're autistic or not. Some of us are visual learners, some are audio learners. And so we have to figure out what works for children. And, obviously for a young age, okay, pictures is likely the best way to go, right? But as they get older, it could be a written out schedule. It can just be, here's my order, or I use checklist as opposed to picture, things like that.
Okay. And do you have them actually physically check it off?
Yes, until they're old enough to really, or get to a point where in their lives where they're able to do it on their own without needing it. And so like our oldest two are 14, almost 16 now. And so they don't often, the 16-year-old rarely needs any of that physical, but she keeps keeps little to-do lists in her phone in order to check that off herself, or just to see this is what we have to do. Just like as an adult would, we do that in our phones all the time, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And when it's a new routine, okay, we'll write down new stuff, say on a dry erase board or something like that. And this is something that even my now almost 20-year-old still does herself. She chooses to do it. She makes her own, little boards, and she's not autistic, but she has her own things going on with anxiety and whatnot. And her knowing exactly, well, if I write it down, I can see it, it's out of my head. So I'm not worrying what I'm missing. And then she writes it down and she checks it off as she goes. It's just like us, we get in a routine. Eventually those routines click in, but not right away. Is it going to be a new routine? You're going to automatically know what to do. And these routines, like I said, sometimes it's the whole routine from, what we do, from getting up to going to school. And other times it's something like bathroom stuff. So, having a little chart that tells you exactly what you're doing with brushing your teeth. You're supposed to, floss and using your toothbrush for the 2 minutes and, cleaning up after space. Even when we were potty training, I took this resource from one of our special education teachers. And she had, because I didn't know how to train a little boy to go potty. That was a new territory for me. I'd done with 3 girls, and I was not very successful in helping my younger brother with that because there was a 11-year gap. And even then, we weren't very successful until he just figured it out finally on his own when he was older. Yes. So with our son, I had no clue. And I walk in one day in the bathroom and she has this chart. And I'm like, oh, can I take a picture of that so I can use it? And it was, graphics that were graphic, they were just boys could understand how to do the process. And so, yeah, it made it so awesome because it's like, okay, now they can see what to do. And I can just point, you did it. Did we do these things? So it wasn't something he even checked off. It was just kind of a reference chart.
That's great. That's a good example too of a time frame in life when you need the potty training chart, but obviously you move past that eventually. And
exactly, you won't need it anymore.
yeah.
And then other routines we have though is that we have routines even when we go out to eat. Realistically, I can tell you what everybody's going to order without asking them. But there's certain places where I know there's a couple variables, like, okay, sometimes it might be a hamburger kids meal, other times it might be chicken nuggets, like, so we know the variable. Even then, like, I even have my routine meals, like to the point that if you just tell me where you're going, I'll tell you what I can eat there. I'm not going to eat everything there, but I can tell you exactly what I'm going to want to order there. And so things like that, where there's a routine or just a structure of, okay, well, we don't wait till we get there to figure out what we want to eat. We look at it in advance before we even leave, because we know there's a lot of anxiety with having to choose. And there's noises going, especially if you're sitting in a restaurant, you got all these other noises around you, people moving, just clanking in the background. You've got all this going on. And then you have this menu in front of you. And then we have, for younger, you're talking 4 kids trying to figure out what they want to eat. That's hard for any parent. And so, yeah, having those little routines in place, it just makes life a little bit easier.
Yeah. So thinking about it in advance, is that as far as you would say, what are some of the ways of creating a routine?
Yeah. Creating those little routines that, sometimes it's just writing it down, noticing what works. And even if it's writing it down and noticing this doesn't work, but I'm writing down all the steps and I notice, well, I think I see where this doesn't work. Let me try to change this. It's kind of adjusting as you go. But yeah, writing those things down, because none of us moms can remember it all. I mean, I can't remember half the stuff throughout my day if I don't write it down either. And that's things like paying the bills. I'm like, okay, did I pay the bills today? Did I water the plant? Did I feed the dog? And we forget these things. So if I have something come to my brain now, I keep notebooks around the house just so I can physically write it down and free up space that I can come back and go, okay, did I do all this?
Right. Very good. All right. So what about those times when circumstances arise, because life is life, and these circumstances make it difficult to follow through with a routine? What are some strategies to have to help our autistic loved one, through this kind of time frame when their routines get out of order?
Yeah, and it's about having a plan in place, right? Because the reality is there's times when plans change. You plan to go to a restaurant and you get there, it's closed because they're short staffed. Or, all of a sudden, okay, yeah, every Wednesday we do this, but now grandma said we need to come hang out over there for the day. Things happen, right? And that's just life. And so we don't want to make a routine space where our kids never see change. We just want to make them understand how to transition with those changes. And so the biggest thing is clear communication, because by not telling our kids and just expecting them to go with it, it's not going to work, right? And that goes for an adult, a child. We can't just expect that we're going to change the plans last second and it's just going to they're just going to say, sure, let me go along with this plan. I mean, a child that isn't autistic won't go through with every plan,
Right.
And so the big thing is, communication. It's giving advance notice if you can. Sometimes it's not much, right? Sometimes plans change last second, but maybe you have 5 minutes and you say, hey, our plans changed. This is what's going to happen. So in 5 minutes, we're going to get ready and we're going to go do this plan. It's giving as much in advance as you can. Obviously, if you know more in advance, the more time you have, the better, right?
Right, yeah.
But sometimes it doesn't happen. But we also are so busy in our lives that we forget that 5 minutes really isn't going to make that big a difference. Even doctor's appointments give you a 10 to 15 minute window on getting there, right? It's because sometimes those few minutes you need it just to make life work a little easier. So if you need to take 5-10 minutes to, okay, we were going to be 5 minutes late to this new party we have to go to. Okay, you're 5 minutes late. Right. It's better to be prepared and work through that calmly than to hurry and then it'd be disaster because you hurried through it. Having visual support. So especially for children who struggle with, that are nonverbal, who really struggle with transition, a lot of people keep books of different random stuff, right? And so they'll go through and they'll just show like here, we're supposed to go to the park, but we can't go to the park today. We have to go to the doctor appointment mommy forgot about, and showing a doctor appointment card. And so it's giving them something to see. They're like, okay, well, in an hour, instead of going to the park, I have to go to the doctor appointment, seeing stuff like that, and that just that structure and consistency of also how we talk about these things is really big, because keeping ourselves calm, explaining stuff, because our kids don't necessarily always need a long answer, but we can a pretty easy answer for most situations. Like, even if it is just honestly, hey, mommy forgot.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Mommies forget, kids forget, and understanding and saying, hey, I'm so sorry, mommy forgot. So we're going to have to do this instead today. But, if it's something especially like maybe they were looking forward to, you can say, but when we get done with this, then we'll go to the park. So maybe we have to go to a doctor appointment and then we can go to the park for a little bit. Or, whatever the case may be, or say that, okay, we can't do that today, but instead when we get home, what would you like to do? And maybe give them an option, give them a 1 or 2 option thing. So that way you can see that they have some control of the world around them. It's giving that little bit. And then, so you don't want huge language. You just want small, simpler, hey, I'm sorry, I forgot. You don't have to explain the whole, the doctor rescheduled and I forgot that. You just something simple. And then when the transition happens good, give them a little bit of praise. It doesn't have to be anything major, but say, hey, thank you so much. You did such a good job today. And even if they didn't do what maybe you would think is great, find the good in those moments. Saying, hey, I know you really struggled with that, but I saw that you were really trying. So I really appreciate that. And a little bit of praise, it helps, because it helps all of us. And that's what we got to remember. Our kids are just little adults, no matter what their diagnoses are. I mean, they're going to grow up to be adult human beings with the same feelings we have. And we felt that same way as a kid. So we can relate to some degree and just think, okay, how would I have felt if somebody had just said you did a good job or found something good? We would have felt really good and we would have been happier to make the transition next time. Yeah. And so just applying that same knowledge to our own children, it goes a long way.
Oh, that's beautiful. And that's a great way to kind of wrap up what we're talking about. I want to turn back my user to write down. It's funny that more what? But and right some key points that personally make action on what you've been learning and the like some years that you see figuring out is getting that first year moving and can free impact our lives. I want to say thank you so much for joining. Watch this as a recording. Thank you. Time. See you also in the second hour. And the momkind.com. All right. So thank you again. And we will continue the conversation unrecorded.